The sixth Hermetic principle is cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. Stripped of its occult vocabulary, this is simply a strong claim for a fully law-governed universe. No true randomness, no true chaos, only causal change we haven't traced far enough to see clearly. Judaism holds an extremely strong version of this principle under the doctrine of Hashgacha Pratit, or individual divine providence. The rationalist and mystical wings of the tradition disagree about scope. Rambam, or Maimonides, in his Guide for the Perplexed, restricts full individual providence primarily to human beings and links its intensity to a person's intellectual and spiritual development, while granting that animals and inanimate objects are governed more by general natural law. The Baal Shem Tov and the Hasidic tradition push further, teaching that not one leaf falls from a tree without it being directed from above, that providence extends to the smallest details of the physical world, not only to human moral agents. Both positions, however strongly or loosely they draw the boundary, reject the idea of a universe with genuine loose ends, events happening for no reason answerable to any order at all. Chance is but a name for law not recognized would be a perfectly comfortable sentence in either the Rambam's philosophical vocabulary or the Baal Shem Tov's mystical one. Where Judaism becomes far more specific than the general Hermetic principle is in the doctrine of midah keneged midah, or measure for measure. This is not a vague assurance that everything happens for a reason in some soft, comforting sense. It is a precise claim, worked out across dozens of Talmudic and Midrashic examples, that the form of consequence often mirrors the form of the original action. Miriam is afflicted with a skin condition for speaking against Moses, a punishment involving speech and visibility, matched to an offense of speech about another person's visibility and standing. Samson, who went after his eyes, pursuing forbidden relationships based on physical attraction, is ultimately blinded by the Philistines. The Talmud in Tractate Sotah catalogues case after case of this pattern and draws the general principle explicitly. B'midah she'adam moded ba modedim lo. With the measure a person measures out, so it is measured back to him. This is cause and effect not merely as an abstract law of the universe, but as a law with a moral grammar, one that speaks back to the specific shape of your action, not merely its general moral valence. Now the hard question, the one every serious tradition of law-governed cosmology has to face honestly. If everything is caused, where is there room for a human being to actually choose anything? This is not a modern anxiety invented by philosophy departments. It is a live rabbinic debate stretching back 2,000 years. Rabbi Akiva, in the second chapter of Pirkei Avot, states the tension as sharply as it ever has been stated. Hakol tzafui v'harshut netuna. Everything is foreseen, and yet free will is given. Both halves of that sentence are asserted with equal force in the same breath by the same sage, with no attempt to soften either one to make the paradox disappear. Rambam, or Maimonides, addresses this directly in the Mishnah Torah's Laws of Repentance, insisting that human free will must be fully real, otherwise the entire structure of commandment, reward, and repentance collapse into theatre, while simultaneously affirming that God's knowledge of the future is total and certain. He does not resolve the logical tension. He states plainly that human understanding is simply not built to hold both truths in a fully reconciled picture, the way a two-dimensional being could never fully picture a three-dimensional object, only its cross-sections. I find this more intellectually honest than either extreme available outside the tradition, pure hard determinism, in which moral responsibility becomes an illusion we tell ourselves for social convenience, or a soft, undisciplined idea of chance that lets people off the hook for the actual causal shape of their choices. Judaism holds the paradox open on purpose because both halves are load bearing. Without law-governed cause and effect, the universe is arbitrary, and prayer, repentance, and moral efforts are meaningless gestures into a void. Without genuine free will, they are meaningless for the opposite reason, because nothing was ever really up to you in the first place. Practically, here is where this principle should land for you. If measure for measure is a real feature of how consequence works, then the specific texture of your actions, not merely whether you are basically a good person in some general sense, but the actual shape of how you spoke, how you looked, how you gave or withheld, is what returns to you in kind. That is far more demanding standard than good things happen to good people. It asks you to notice the particular form of your own conduct, because the universe, on this account, is listening closely enough to answer you in the same key. In the next episode, we will discuss the principle of gender, the Hermetic principle that everything contains masculine and feminine, and its expression in the paired Sephirot of Kabbalah, the Shekhinah, and the Jewish doctrine of union as the engine of creation.